Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Emmerich. I'm the founder of Weekplan, and today I'm going to talk with Kevin Mecchella, who's running the website upgrademyrituals.com, and I'm going to dive a bit more in detail about what a ritual is and how you can upgrade them. Thanks, Kevin, for your time.
Thank you, Emmerich. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll start. First question is, how did you came to being focused on rituals? Like, what's your story that brought you to focusing on rituals?
Well, it's definitely not a normal story. It's definitely not a straight path, but I'll kind of Quentin Tarantino it. I'll start from no, that's not right. But either way, I was I was actually a music teacher. And somehow that got me into personal development and productivity and routine. So basically what happened was when I started out as a musician and a music teacher, I found a lot of very challenging times, both personally, professionally. Just it was rough. I was 22, and now I look back at that, literally over a decade later. And I'm like, all right, well, I was a kid then, and I had a lot of growing up to do. And,
Can you give us some specifics? Like, what did you find? What were the moments that were tough?
Yeah, no, of course. So, well, basically, I found myself in a full-time job right out of college, and it was a difficult job. I had a lot of responsibilities in a lot of different locations, and I had administrators who just some of them were really, really tough and had expectations that were just wild. And even now who I am, I'm able to see. I'm like, wow, well, I had a challenge and I failed, and it just was not. It was not a good situation, not a good fit. And specifically, I with those challenges, really what happened was the way I faced them was really inappropriate. If I was asked to do more work, well, I was saying, well, I can't do anymore. I was overwhelmed. The biggest thing, I was overwhelmed. So what did I do? Well, I choose to go out all hours of the night with my buddies and stay up till 2:00 in the morning. And then I wonder why I'm exhausted and I'm late for work. So basically, the challenges that were thrown at me, both positive and negative, I had no way of dealing with them, and there was no system in place. And that's really what led to me being just not asked back to a job. And now I'm like, 23-year-old, and I'm like, I have no job, and I'm just totally scared. And that was the negative part of all this. And I can go into a lot of details too, but that did shift to a real positive thing of basically that says, well, with no routines in your life and no structure in your life, you are doomed for utter failure, because anything that comes at you, any stress and overwhelm, you have no system to deal with that. So
before we get more in detail into the systems, I
sure.
still want to understand your progression from being someone who doesn't have any idea of what a system is and doesn't have that in his life, end up having no job. And then what helped you make the realization that systems are that important?
Great question. So yeah, I'll take you through the whole journey up till now. So basically, now I'm in this situation where I'm just overwhelmed. I'm completely stressed, and I have no idea of the future. I have no clarity. And a professor of mine from my undergrad, we became friendly. And what he did for me was so important. He gave me belief in myself when I needed it the most. And he just, was a wise guy, and he knew that I needed something. And what he said was, we were having the conversation about being a performer. If teaching music is not, going to be your gig, why don't you really be a performer? And I said, well, I don't know. He's like, no, listen to me. You're a really good player. And he had a connection to, as we were talking earlier off camera, to one of his, he was a native Belgium, and he had a connection to one of the conservatory professors. And he said, listen, go study with Olivier. I know you can do it. And just the way he said it and what he said gave me, it was just literally like a flashlight. I just was like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. There's a thing called responsibility, and I'm completely responsible for my life. So, and all that I do. So I just got started to get fired up. I started practicing a lot, and I became the best version of myself at that point. I contacted Olivier from the Liège Conservatory in Belgium, had the audition, got accepted, and then I spent a year in Belgium. And this was not like a study abroad program. This was just me doing my master's work with, some French professor, and that experience, that year, was the most life-changing year for me. That's where I started, and talk about stress, talk about overwhelm. When you first get there and you're like, oh, wait, nobody speaks my language? Oh, wait, what's going on? In the first 2 months, you either make it or you break it. And I made it, and I started taking the just complete stress of leaving my girlfriend at the time, now wife, leaving everything I knew, all my friends, just to pursue a career in a euphonium, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is like a small tuba. Crazy. But I said, wow, okay, this is actually awesome. And that's when I started going down the road of personal development, spending my time investing in myself, learning new things. And from there on in, from the next, that was about probably 7 years ago, I became obsessed with trying to figure out what makes people tick, how they move the needle in their lives. And this all started with experimenting, obviously me being the guinea pig. And only recently I said, wait a minute, I have a system. It's worked so well for me. I can teach it. And that's where Upgrade My Rituals came into existence.
I see.
Yeah.
And so what were some of the breakthroughs you made early on that helped you get to a high performance level?
The biggest thing I think is actually a framework I have within this system is called the CDH framework. And this is basically the choices that we are presented with, the decisions we make on those choices, and the habits that we build around those decisions. We are faced with so many choices of every day, from what to eat, what to spend your time doing, who to talk to, who not to talk to, what emails to write, all these things. And you have to decide, and you have to make those decisions based on what it is that you want to accomplish, if you even know what that is, big vision stuff, and where you want to see yourself go, right? And again, all these, there's a lot of thought process behind that. And then building habits around those positive decisions and breaking bad decisions. So do I eat the cookie or do I not eat the cookie? There's going to be cookies in the break room, right? You have a choice. Do I eat it or not? I either decide, yeah, sure. And if I keep doing that every day, I'm building that bad habit, right? Because now every day I'm just, I'm eating cookies all day. But if I decide, and it only takes once, to say, nah, I'm good. And that's because I know who I am. I'm a person who eats healthy, right? Or I'm a person who is a healthy person. Then all of a sudden you can continue to build a positive habit. So it goes both ways. And that framework is everything.
And what were some of the books or maybe role models that inspired you? Like the framework is what you came up with, but when it started, I think it was more organic than that. Like it sounds like you're describing what the end result is, but I can imagine that at the start it wasn't so clear, and you started with maybe some books or things that inspired you. Can you remember?
Well, it's funny because that's So that's actually, that framework is a framework that I've, and there's a lot of unpacking to that. But the person who talks about that type of concept, having facing decisions, and is actually Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins, the father of all personal development, he was actually, while I was in Belgium, the guy who, what I would do is I would binge listen, because I said to myself, I can't understand the language anyway. I tried so hard for months. I can't understand French. You know what? I'm going to go inward and I'm going to plug in. And I listened to Tony for quite some time. And he was the first person who opened me up to, guys like Tim Ferriss. And of course, the even earlier guys, Brian Tracy, and the, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know that we have that in commonality. Charles Duhigg. I mean, all these, there's countless people, but that's what's really interesting, is that there is so much you can pull from, but what works for you? That's the question.
Yeah. Nice. And so you got to a point where it was very clear for you. You had like choices, decisions, habit.
Yep.
And then how did you do that jump towards rituals? What's the difference between a ritual and a habit?
Oh my gosh, you're literally spelling out like the second chapter in my book that I'm writing right now. That's awesome. So the difference between, and a great question, the difference between a habit, and I'm going to explain that, and then I'm going to follow it up with something. The difference between a habit and a ritual. A habit is something that you do a one-off thing, to eat the cookie or to not eat the cookie. Okay. What's really interesting is that I can develop, 12, 14, 20 habits throughout my day. But instead, what I may want to do is say to myself, okay, I have 24 hours in a day. What most of my days, 5 days out of the week, look exactly the same. What am I going to do for those 24 hours? What are the things I'm going to do the first second I wake up? What are the things I do the first second when I get to the office or when I'm leaving the office? And then what am I doing right before I go to bed? And what's happening is that, it's funny, I'm looking at it right now. I've got it all spelled out right here. If I just follow my rituals, there's a lot of good habits that are baked in. And when you get momentum, when you check off the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, developing a habit that sounds so difficult. I'm just going to follow my AM routine. You know what I mean? And that languaging and that system is just easier. There's a lot less friction.
I see. So if I try to say it in my own words, habits are a bit unstructured. Like you have the habit of brushing your teeth and eating cookies or going to the gym or whatever. Ritual has some intent maybe behind and more regular, where I have this concept of the ideal week, where you say, okay, as an entrepreneur, especially, you have the freedom of how you manage your time. And maybe Monday would be finances and accounting day. And in the morning, I would go to the gym. And so I would block time for all these different roles and things I want to do. And it sounds like ritual are exactly the habits that you put in these blocks.
You pretty much nailed it. I mean, basically, as you said, there are things that we do that are baked in. We have to brush our teeth. We don't have to, but good luck for those of you who don't. We have to brush our teeth. We have to comb our hair. We have to do those things. We have to, make coffee in the morning. Great. But we don't necessarily have to meditate every morning. That could be considered a habit. But if meditating in the morning plus breathing exercises and a cold shower or whatever it is for you, if that is your AM routine and you're going to do that every single day, you're not building 3 or 4 different habits. You're building one habit of executing your AM routine.
I see.
Big difference.
I see. Very nice. So it makes implementing habits easier because you just follow through and building the momentum of checking, like, I've done that, awesome. I've done that, awesome. It helps you go through the whole list.
You know it, because again, you're going to be faced with choices throughout the day. You're going to have the situation where at 12:03, in the break room, someone says, "Hey, do you want some cookies?" You still have that situation. That's why I've thought through that process as well. But, again, every morning at 8:05 is the time that you make breakfast for yourself. You no longer have to ask and go through this cognitive load of saying, all right, I'm faced with a choice. I don't have things in the fridge. You know what? I'll just get, you know what? I'm going to decide today just to go get Starbucks and get a bagel. And then I'm going to do that 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row. And all of a sudden, a year later, you've gained 20 pounds and you wonder why. But if, you know that every morning you have a half an avocado with a little olive oil, there's no thinking. That's it. That's what you do.
Nice. Yeah, I can see it can help reduce the the willpower load that you may have every day.
Absolutely.
So you know that you will do it, and but how do you imagine someone says, I want to go to the gym every day, or even meditate. It's a habit I'm trying, or a ritual. No, it's a habit in that case. So it's a habit I'm trying to build, and I do it fairly regularly, but I could be even more regular and for longer period of time. how do I go into getting that implemented? Do I start by having some very small habits and this big one? Let's say that I want to meditate every day for 30 minutes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do I put some very easy wins before in that ritual, or what do you suggest if I want to implement?
So it's funny also that you say that, because I'm actually, right as we speak, working through an implementation process. Now, this is, and it's very, very personal. You can do exactly what you said. I'm going to meditate for 1 minute, and then the next day I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes. And there was a great book, Atomic Habits, by
James Clear.
Thank you, James Clear. And he kind of goes through that model as well. You can do that, but there's all different ways you can do it. And we'll get more into when we get into the nitty gritty of what a ritual design is throughout the entire day. I'll tell you why that kind of may answer this question for some people. But it may be to you may want to do you want to meditate in the morning, and then you want to make a healthy shake as soon as you come back at the end of the day from work. You step in, you come home, and you want to make a shake. So you could say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to meditate every morning for 5 minutes this week, and I'm going to make a shake when I come home. And that's going to be it. That's going to be the whole design. Or you may say, I'm going to meditate, 1 minute plus it's really totally up to you. The one thing I would say is that implementing should not be overthought. You should not overthink this process. You should start with something, try it, and if it fails, I'm going to also explain why that's totally okay. It is a process that I've been doing this for so many years. I have changed my design completely in so many different areas that it always needs iteration. So I wouldn't overthink the implementation process. I would just start it and see what works.
Yeah. What does your ritual, or do you have? Is it one ritual for the whole day, or do you have a morning ritual and then a lunch ritual?
Great question. So now what I'm going to do is I'll spend a couple of minutes just unpacking the very, very basics of this. There's a lot that I can, like I said, go into, and that's why I figured, I need to write a book on this, because it's just a lot. What this whole process is the connection of and the looking at inflection points throughout the day that can derail someone's progress. So if you know that when you get home from work, you're exhausted, you're tired, and you have enough hours left in the day to work on that side hustle that you want to see, be full time in the next 2 years. You can, but every time you're just exhausted, right? Well, what I've done is I figured out, okay, there really is a couple of different inflection points throughout the day that need to be looked at for everybody. That usually is comprised of 4 different times throughout the day. That's the first thing in the morning. Your body and your brain is the most susceptible to influence at that time. So it could be positive, it could be negative. If we're looking at our phone for a second of the day, usually that's negative. The second one for me is right before or right at when I get to work. I'm an outside sales rep, so I start work at a certain time for me. It starts at 9 o'clock. So that is very work oriented for me. That routine, what I call the BW routine, the before work routine, is just all processing for, looking at where I'm going to be throughout the day, my client list, all that stuff. The next thing, like I said, for most of us is when we're starting to, really slump physically. And that's usually when we come home from work, 5 o'clock, 5, 6 o'clock, whatever it is. And that also adds, now we're shifting an environment. So now we've been dealing with our bosses nagging at us, the problems we have at work. And now we're coming home to our spouses or our family, and we're unloading all that on them. No. And then finally is, what do we do right before we go to bed? Right before we go to bed, are we watching screens to the last second? Are we working to the last second? Or are we recharging and connecting? Now, with that being said, I'll give you 2 other things that we should think about when you're implementing these, what I like to call the 4 horsemen, right? The AM routine, the BW routine, the after work or the AW routine, and of course the PM routine. Oh, it sounds like a lot, right? But again, you can implement however you want. You can start with just a couple of one item, one action on each part. You could just do the morning. You could just do the night. It's totally up to you. But there's two things that you have to look out for when somebody's doing this is the actuator. I've got names for all this stuff. So don't worry if we don't remember it, but it's called the actuator and the clog. So the actuator, this is, in the car, every car we drive, there's an actuator. It's actually, and I have no idea what it is, but I know what it does. It makes the thing go, right? And what is the thing that makes your routine start? That gives us all that juice and momentum that says, all right, here we go. And for me, that actually is the PM routine, the beginning of the PM routine. And really, as simple as that is, it's just doing the dishes and making sure, well, not even do the dishes, just making sure that my kitchen is kind of set up for the next day. I prep my coffee, I've laid out my clothes, all that stuff. And now I got the momentum going. And I'm like, ooh, okay, so I'm all set. And then I finish my PM. Oh, okay, tomorrow morning is going to be awesome. And that's my actuator. Another thing, like I said, is the clog. And this is important because if somewhere along the line, something doesn't fall into perfect alignment and something comes at you, which everybody's vying for your attention, of course, is what's going to clog the system, what's going to interrupt the entire system and derail it. And for me, again, it's a stupid thing, but my clog is doing the dishes. If at the end of my morning routine, before I start work, if I don't do the dishes, okay, then I come home at the end of the day to a sink full of dishes. Now I've got a thing to ask myself, do I do them now or do I get started on the rest of my stuff? Okay, I'll leave them sit. And then at the night, I have to make dinner. Now I've got double dishes. And all of a sudden, I don't have time because I'm spending literally half an hour doing dishes. And all of a sudden, now we start to have the wheels kind of fall off. So again, there's a lot of details to all that stuff that I can get into, but that's the basic of it. The 4 horsemen of what these 4 routines will actually do for you at the inflection points throughout the day, the actuator and the clog. And that's very personal to everybody.
Yeah. I actually have a 5th moment for me is lunchtime. Please. It's maybe because I'm French. But the lunchtime is a period for me where I found is the best time for me to meditate. So that's actually when I decide to meditate, because waking in the morning and meditating, I find that my mind is already clear. Like I'm awake. I don't have the disturbance of the day, so I'm fine. The mud of my brain is settled. Then I start working in the morning, so the mud starts going up. And that's where I think is a good time to meditate, to put it back down. If I do that at night, I'm too tired and it's too muddy and I'm not as effective. So for me, the meditation time is lunchtime. And that goes with gym as well, because I work from home, so I can have bigger breaks. So I might do some gym session as well right after lunchtime. But yeah, for me, that's a personal thing. And that's where I would have a ritual.
And that's exactly right. And you may take away from, you may not do something at the end of the workday. You may not do it all. It's a philosophy versus a fact. This is a system that you need to make your own and customize to how you see fit.
I see. So you start small. You pick your inflection points. You are careful. How do you identify clogs? Like for me, it's not clear yet how I can find my own clogs.
Well, so what, well, this also is basically comes down to the question of, are you tracking what you're doing? So, and you don't have to get serious with this. There's a million other ways to do this. There's little devices you can use, alarms. This is just being aware about, okay, I told myself that I'm going to implement this morning, routine thing. The first thing I want to go to bed, and then an after work routine, just a little couple of things I do, whatever. And for some reason you did them on Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, you didn't do your after work routine. Okay. Well, now you have to backtrack and say, why? What was it? Was it because you stayed late at the office and then you were tired? Then you probably need that after work routine actually has to be at the end of your actual work day. And you have to start basically just taking a look and saying, okay, what is actually disrupting me? And is there a commonality? Is there a thread that I see over time? And it was like, again, when I found mine, I was like, this is dumb. It's just doing the dishes. But it was what I figured, okay, it's just clogging me up every time.
Interesting. And the other question I had is that I feel that, it's part of life. Your ritual will be derailed at some point. Like I feel it's bound to happen. You go in holidays and you stop your routine altogether, or you've got someone you're hosting, someone, or whatever is the reason. How do you get back into it? Is it you start from small again, or from where you left it off? And how long are you okay with not doing it? Like if you go in a different country for a while and you don't have your environment, how do you manage all that?
That's I like that second part of it, because it starts with what you believe. If you tell yourself that, oh man, I failed, well, then you're going to make this a problem getting back into it. But the way I look at this, and this is why, so mine is I keep looking over here because I need to have it written down. I need to see it and be reminded. Mine is very intense. I have well over 30 different items throughout the entire, system. The reason why mine is so intense is that I know that if I do half of that, that I am well on my way to accomplishing what I want, both personally and professionally. If I do all of that, I don't have to think twice about if I'm on the right track. If I do even some of it, it's okay. But other people, like I said, they may be really overwhelmed by having 30, action items throughout their design. So what they may want to do is have only one single thing that they do each part of their day, maybe 3 times throughout the day, 4 times, whatever it is. And that makes it really easy. And again, you have to know yourself. If you are a person who loves momentum and really gets a kick out of that, then you probably won't need a lot of convincing to start up again. But I think it really starts with the expectations you have. Like, why are you doing this? Is this just to check the boxes because some guy on a video told me I should do this? Or is this that, wow, I'm going to have so much fantastic direction in my life if I do just some of this stuff? And if this is my fallback, then great. So what gets done gets done. But that's the way I look at it. But some people are super OCD where I'm like, if I fail, it's good. If I don't do everything, I'm going to be really in a problem. So it really starts with knowing yourself, having a really great amount of self-awareness, and having, just basically just knowing how do you get back onto things. Like,
so
it's different for everybody.
You increase self-awareness?
What was that?
How would you improve self-awareness?
Oh, that's the question. That is the question I think we're all trying to answer. Let's see if I could come up with an answer for this one. I think a word I've been using lately is friction. Friction is really interesting. And if I feel bad, I have to ask myself why. If I feel good, then I have to also ask myself why. But it all comes down to, like, how am I feeling inside? Like, what do I feel good about what I did today? And if I don't, like, what did I do? Did I snap at somebody because I was stressed about that report I had to get done at work? Or, did I ignore my kids because I was thinking about, that I've been gaining weight lately at dinner? Who knows? But that's a really good question. I think it's really just re-languaging it and thinking about what the word friction means to you. And if you can be more intuitive to where there's friction in your life, you'll start to unpack, okay, well, that's probably because, I don't like this and I like that. It's a great question.
So, some of the techniques I've heard, like, people answer to me around self-awareness are journaling. And that's what you touched by saying, like, reflecting on how you felt during the day and why. Having a journal at the end of the day to try to unpack all these things is one way to build up self-awareness, because over time, instead of looking at it at the end of the day, it will be while you're feeling it, you'll be like, oh, I'm feeling this emotion again that I have unpacked 3 days ago. Oh, okay, that's because of that. So that's one way, I think. The other one is meditation, because meditation puts you on a third-person perspective of your own life. And again, it gives you some maybe some.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those are fantastic tactics. And I think, by the way, like you said, I mean, the 5-minute journal, I'm sure you've probably heard of that. That's baked into my routines for a reason, right? Because it works. The thing is, though, I even find myself doing it sometimes. I'm writing in the journal because I'm supposed to. And I'm just, I'm filling in the 3 things I'm grateful for. Okay, yeah. And it's more about the practice of going deeper in those tactics. So really, being present while you're meditating, and that's a whole nother separate conversation, but being present while you're journaling, saying, well, first of all, why am I doing this in the first place? But yeah, no, I totally agree. Those are great ways you can kind of start the journey.
You touched a bit about having devices that can help you with implementing. So I'm a technology person. My whole business is run on technology. How can you leverage technology to implement all these things you're talking about, all the rituals? Like, do you have any suggestions on what can help?
Yep. Well, a good piece of software that anybody, and this is not, this is custom to anybody, whatever works for you, whether it's some type of calendar, whether it's Evernote, whether it's a one I've just found recently is Notion. Fantastic. You need something that you can really, a powerhouse where you can have everything that is you need to do that day, everything you want to do that day, everything you want to do a year down the road, whatever it is. You need some type of software. For me, like I said, I've just been experimenting with Notion. It's one out there. Another thing that I like to do is I use Alexa, and this could be, you could use Google Home, whatever. It's a voice activated device to help me with my routines and just try to get them. If I have any, little, like lately, I've been reading. One of the first things I do in my morning is reading, and I just been and I've been pushing that a little bit. I've been pushing it 5-7 minutes in. So at 6:30, Alexa chimes in and says, okay, wrap up this next page and move on with your routine. And what's nice about that is the words that she's using versus an alarm on your phone has meaning to you. So, and you can program them to say whatever you want, positive and negative. One other thing I'll say is that there's a new device that I'm actually going to pick up very soon. I have no affiliation, no experience with it, but it's called Timular. And it's this little, I don't want to say octagon, some like type of diamond. It's a physical device. Yeah. So and it seems very, very cool.
So finish explaining, sorry.
Oh, no. Basically, it's just, it's a physical device that connects to the digital world where you can actually write different things on each side of this, let's call it an octagon for the lack of a better term. And when you flip it over on different sides, it'll start automatically tracking whatever that task is for you. So whether it's phone calls, whether it's personal time, whatever it is, when you flip it, it automatically starts tracking back into the software. So that's also pretty cool that I think people should, check out at least.
Timular is the name?
Timular, yep.
Timular. Yeah, I think you can put different symbols on each of the sides of it. And it will represent a different category of tasks, and then you can use that to track your time. It's nice because that link with the physical world makes it easier to build a habit of tracking your time because it's there, it's physical, and I can see that working really well.
Again, coming back to friction, if I have to open up a new tab on my window, there's a lot of things that I can get distracted with. I can just click over to Instagram or Facebook, but with this thing, it's just, so I'm looking forward to actually getting into it. So
yeah, and Alexa, basically you're using the reminders to set up all the steps in your routine, in your ritual?
Not all of them. Only things that I start to see that creep in. So problems that creep in. So again, I'm reading, lately I've been reading a couple of really good books that I just, first thing in the morning, I don't have, and that's the reason I'm reading, is because I want to start and ease into my day. I just, read a couple more pages, and all of a sudden 5-10 minutes go by and I'm like, okay, I'm late. So you're running behind of all your steps, and ultimately you might drop one of them. And I'm like, okay. So I just figure out where, not a full clog, right? Something that totally clogged, because you'll figure that out, what totally derailed the whole system, but just things that start to, creep in and have a little bit of grabbing at my attention.
So how do you say that to Alexa? I have Google Home, and I'm not sure I know how to set up a reminder like that. Is it like, hey Alexa, remind me every day at 8:30 to turn off my to stop reading? Is that how you would say it?
I think you just made a reminder on my Alexa. No, no. You can tell her to do that, or you can program it on the app on your phone. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Google, I'm not exactly sure. I'm an
Yeah.
Alexa guy.
And are you using any other apps, or you're using Notion for everything now?
Right now, I'm in Notion, and that's pretty much where I've just started. So I'm kind of really digging into it and giving it some time. I used to use Evernote. What I do though is that's my like my everything, but everything that has a specific date and time goes into my iCal. So those two, pieces. But I heard of this awesome system that kind of combines everything.
Yeah, I heard about it too. Is there an aspect of the ritual design we haven't touched you want to talk about?
Not for today's purposes, because it really this concept of thinking about the problem points in your day, how to provide yourself positive and productive tasks around those problem points, is that and thinking about what really juices you up to do that, and what might clog you up to maybe not do you. That is more than enough for people to really think through this system. There, like I said, there's a lot of other details, as we talked about, when it comes to the reasons why, and tracking this, and but I think what I would recommend for people to do is just figure out, if you have a morning routine and you've been doing it really great, that's awesome. Now, this whole thing, by the way, I'll give you a little bit more context. This whole thing started was because, a lot of points in my life, not just when I was teaching, a lot of points in my life, I was not happy, whether it's professionally, whether it's, just whatever it is. And I would do a whole morning routine and I'd feel great. And then all of a sudden I'd start my day and immediately be depressed throughout the entire day. There's something other that needs to be implemented.
So if people want to touch base with you and maybe explore a bit more this concept of rituals with you, so obviously you've got your website, upgrademyrituals.com. Yep. I've seen that you're offering several things. Do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, so actually coming very soon, in the next probably month, and what we'll do is, I'll give you the link in one. I'm actually going to be creating basically a video walkthrough that teaches the exact things that we, obviously just the brief stuff that we talked about today, but in a lot more detail. That walks you through implementing it through yourself, as we talked about, on paper. And if you want to keep it on the screen digitally, that's fine too. But I want to give people a system that is really, really just tangible. So until that comes out, what I do have is right on the homepage. You can just take a look at how to start with, because in my belief, the morning is the most important. So if you don't have a morning routine set up, there's a PDF guide. It's about like a 12-page guide that kind of walks you through just really conceptually what's important about the morning, why you should really have an AM routine, and some things that we may even think about. Some things, if you have an entire family, you have a wife or husband and two, 3 kids, and you're all of a sudden implementing this hour and a half long, routine, And, you have to talk to them. We have to say, okay, well, listen, mom or dad, they're going to be doing this thing. I need you to help me with that. So this guide kind of walks you through just the morning process. And you can just, type in your email and get that. And it's right on the homepage. So
that's it.